as John had indicated to you, we're hosting an event in October called the YTexas Summit, and we're going to be showcasing big Texas brands and big Texas names. And I had asked him if he knew you and if I could get introduced to you, because again, like I said, I think that just the Ryan family story is a great Texas story. So even though you can't make it up, I'm really excited to be able to at least talk to you a little bit about it. I had a chance to see Facing Nolan, unbelievable movie, and now you're an executive producer now, huh?
Yeah, so the way that really came about, I had been down in Houston for 8 years with the Houston Astros. I was president when we went to the World Series and won in 2017 and 2019. And I left at the end of COVID in the 2020. And these folks had been pitching my dad on wanting to do a movie really about kind of his life and him playing, and he had just passed on it. So my brother said, "Hey man, I think this would be a great idea. You should look into it." And so I started visiting with some of the people that had pitched us and ended up settling on a producer and a director, both that were Texans and guys that had an interest in telling the story. So I partnered up with them and we raised the capital and hired the production company, and man, went out and distribution company and got it done. And it's been great. It just received the #1 ranking all time on Rotten Tomatoes for baseball movies, which is pretty impressive.
So Bull Durham beat all of them, huh?
Yeah. Now look, how many of it was that those movies came out and didn't have a lot of Rotten Tomatoes back in the day? Some of the older ones could be, but yeah, it was right up there at the top, which was very impressive. I think when you go into a story on Nolan Ryan, people that were fans probably were predisposed to liking it coming in. And, folks that didn't know much about them, I think learned a lot, where, maybe a theatrical movie, whether it's cursing or nudity or lewd situations, sometimes that doesn't play with all audiences. But the movie we put out there, even though it did have a little bit of language in it here and there, for the most part, really struck a chord from young to old to every demographic to, really men and women all across the spectrum.
Yeah, well, I was saying tongue in cheek about you being an executive producer because I know, and again, you talked a little bit about this maybe in another podcast, but I mean, like you had said, it was an idea that was put across your desk. I know your dad did not want to do it. I think your mother convinced him to do it. But the whole process, I mean, you've never been in the movie business before. I'm assuming you learned a lot through this.
Yeah, when I was with the Astros, we made a film about Jose Altuve, and we did it in partnership with MLB Network. And so obviously had gone through the process before, but we didn't have the mass distribution that Facing Nolan ended up having. So yeah, it was definitely a learning for me, and a lot of kind of educating yourself on the fly, but had a little bit of a basis to be dangerous, and quickly realized that the reason that nobody saw our Jose Altuve movie outside of MLB Network was you have to have that distribution company, and that's really who controls Hollywood and Netflix and the movie theaters. It's the people that control distribution. And it's that way in a lot of businesses, to be honest with you. There's lots of people that want to create content, but it's the folks that can actually monetize it and turn it into a business that are the ones that are the most powerful and the most successful in that industry. And that's really what we learned in this process.
Well, and like you said in another interview, with any good story, right, you have to have not saying a villain, but you have to have something from rags to riches. And I know that you had mentioned I don't think your dad's story was necessarily rags to riches, but he is that kind of guy that didn't really want a lot of attention. And of course, if you look at his career, there were instances where he maybe should have gotten more recognition than he didn't. So it's kind of like the perfect story, right? And the perfect person.
Well, there has to be conflict, I believe, to have any good story. And so, my dad's life in some ways was sort of void of the conflict that you see of, the player living under the bridge 10 years after they're done playing, or the guy with the drug problem, or, that gambles his money away. So he didn't have that kind of conflict. His conflict really was an internal conflict in, how do I try to be the best and live up to these God-given gifts that I've been given, and not be a bust? And, how do I try to be a family man, live in a place that I want to live, Texas, be true to my values, yet still, try to achieve things in life? And so I thought Bradley Jackson and Russell Groves really did a magnificent job of sort of being able to have that internal conflict, but yet still put together a movie that was reflective of who he is as a person, but that held the audience's attention and was something that, obviously has had a tremendous amount of critical reviews and obviously success at the box office and with Netflix.
Yeah, no, it's it's a really good movie. I mean,
Thank
it
you.
really is.
Yeah, the first one that we had, we ended up, we took an approach really like any business that we're involved with or anything in our lives or athletics, is let's go about this and do it the right way. And so we had the proper budget, and I have to thank all of the investors, a lot of them that have been in our other deals that stepped up for this deal. But then we went about doing it like you do a regular movie, a theatrical release. We did test screenings in LA and Texas and New York. We went back with the editors. Anytime you open up the film, that costs money. And we took it down from about, over 2 hours, really down to that kind of sweet spot of an hour and a half. And we had enough to make, a multi-part series, and we got into it. We weren't sure exactly where it was going to air. And so slowly we whittled it away. And I thought the guys did a really good job of picking some things that had not really been discussed before, like the 1980 playoff series with the Phillies. Some of the stuff with the Mets ended up hitting the cutting room floor. Some of the other stuff on a few of the no-hitters, we just had to barely, glaze over, because it's just so much content when you play 27 years and you have that many records. But at the end of the day, they did a really good job of asking the question, where does Nolan Ryan rank? And his stats are unlike anybody else's in the game. They really are. They're, you have these amazing longevity stats. You have these amazing power stats, which are strikeouts. You lack some of the things like, 20-win seasons. He has a couple. No Cy Young award. There were some different push-pulls that went into his career, but it's what makes him unique.
Yeah, and I mean, the story was really amazing. And I grew up, here was one thing really interesting that you mentioned in the movie. East Coast people didn't really know enough about Nolan Ryan because of TV. I lived in New York, and I grew up a Yankees fan. And of course, I've heard of Nolan Ryan, but I never really watched him pitch much on TV.
Yeah, I mean, several of his no-hitters, there's no video of, because every
Nope.
game wasn't on TV. Today, every one of my kids' games from the time they play 10-year-old baseball up is all recorded in somewhere. So, it's just a different era. If you were on the East Coast and the Angels came out to play the Yankees and the Red Sox, if you didn't see him one of the 5 days or 4 days that he pitched, it might be a year or two till you caught him on an East Coast swing, maybe in Baltimore or something. So just a different era. There weren't that many teams on the West Coast back then. And,
Right.
folks weren't staying up. And a lot of times the box scores weren't, hitting till a day later. So it was hard to actually see the greatness that he was doing on the West Coast.
Well, and I look back, it says 1973, Jim Palmer won the Cy Young. And, Jim Palmer had the nice hair and the tan, and, he was Baltimore. And then you look at the stats for Nolan, and I mean, it's not even close.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not even close, but it's that East Coast, West Coast thing.
Well, and Jim was on a winning team. And I think that's the other part about it.
Yeah. No, I get
when
it.
you're on winning teams, that really affects, people's perception of you overall. And you see it across lots of different sports. The teams that win tend to get more Heisman Trophy winners than the ones that don't, even if a player's stats are, off the chart, gaudy like my dad's were. So, that's all part of the story and all part of his career. And at the end of the day, Hall of Fame voters recognized his greatness, as have, people across the game. Today's advanced analytics really tend to show my dad, if you look at wins above replacement, as being one of the greatest pitchers to ever pitch. So that's very, very impressive.
Well, again, I remember as a kid watching him. I mean, that he threw so much faster than everybody else. And he, if you've seen him and J.R. Richard, I mean, it was just to watch those two guys pitch. They just dominated.
Yeah, it was neat. I mean, look, there have been a lot of hard throwers over
Yeah.
the course of the game. And, it's interesting because technologies change. But one thing that's neat about my dad is he was able to sustain his ability to throw hard over the course of his career, all the way up to that 7th no-hitter. And, that's really, really impressive. But I would have loved to have seen him. I mean, I did, but I was a kid in those early 70s and see exactly what that was like when he was striking out close to 400 people a season.
Yeah. So you were a bat boy.
I was, yeah, during the years with the Astros. Was really too young for the Angels. I think I was 7 years old in 1979, 7-8, when we went to play Baltimore in the playoffs. But really grew up in a major league clubhouse. My dad was great to bring me along everywhere he went. And when I got to Houston in the 1980, when he signed with the Astros, of course, that was kind of all my, little league years all the way through high school. And obviously a great time to be a bat boy, to work in the clubhouse, to be around the game. And the highlight of that really for me was, even though we lost, was the 86 playoff series with the Mets. I traveled with the team to New York, and just was a ton of fun getting to be around those players. And the lessons you learn from being around great players, really, they've carried over into my life. Being prepared, working hard, setting goals, being a good teammate, all of those things, they rub off on you and you don't even know they do, because you're hanging out with those guys every day. And so it was truly a gift for me and the rest of my life.
Well, and I'm glad we're talking about the movie. I want to talk about you, of course, and the family and the business, because I think the Texas story for you and for the family is your success in business.
Well,
I was thinking about this. I was comparing it to Roger Staubach and his family, right?
Mhm.
So Roger had a lot of success in the NFL. Of course, Nolan had a lot of success in the Major League Baseball. But what they did and what the families did, and the kids played. I mean, you played minor league baseball. The impact that you had in the state on business, I think, is the story.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I just, my dad was raised the youngest of 6 kids, Depression era parents, as you saw in the film. And his parents' goal was for all of their kids to get educations. And all of my aunts and uncles are, have multiple college degrees. Several have been college professors and high school teachers, and very successful. And, my dad took very much the same approach, that I have been given a gift with this right arm, a God-given gift. And it's up to me to maximize that to its fullest. And anything less than that would truly, I think, be disrespectful to his parents and the sacrifices they made to be able to give their kids an opportunity to go on and do things that were better than them. And so I think my brother and I and my sister, I'm the oldest of 3, have really felt the same way. To whom much is given, much is expected. And, we were given a head start in life. There's just no doubt about it. I tell people, being Nolan Ryan's son may get you in the game, but it doesn't get anybody out for you. You got to get people out on your own. But to not acknowledge that we have a leg up because of who we are, the people we know, the access to capital we have, a lot of things that are very hard for other people to achieve, then that's a responsibility. And we have to hold that responsibility dear, look ourselves in the mirror and say, we have to live up to being the best Reid and Reese and Wendy Ryan that we can be. And that's what we've tried to do. And I played myself in college and professionally. I did not make the major leagues. It's hard. It's really, really hard. I was a good athlete and a good baseball player, but it is hard to make it. It's even harder to do what my dad did, which is make the Hall of Fame, which is 1% of all people to ever put on a major league uniform. And so it gives you perspective that that's even more of a responsibility you have to live up to. And so our goal was, look, let's just go out and try to do good things. And we got started first in minor league baseball. I'd never been around minor league baseball, grew up in the big leagues until I played in the New York Penn League. And I asked the question, why are there not more of these teams in the state of Texas? You know, we have warm weather. People love baseball. It's a sports crazy place. And so we set out to bring more baseball teams to the state of Texas. And I'm very proud that our work in, you know, Round Rock and the Austin market and Corpus Christi led to Frisco getting a team, led to Sugar Land getting a team, you know, led to new stadiums in Midland and El Paso, led to Amarillo getting a team. And so our efforts really have changed in a lot of ways, not just baseball in the state of Texas, but really minor league baseball across the United States. So that's exciting. And then, you know, we have been in the banking business really since my dad bought an interest in the bank in our hometown back in the 80s. And, you know, I think to truly be happy and to feel like you're contributing to your community, whether that's a town, a state, you know, a country, however big you define that community, you have to be doing something bigger than yourself. And I love the banking business because you're helping people achieve their dreams, whether it's businesses or going to school or, you know, doing something that they need. It's just a really, really slow and steady good business. And so we've had a lot of success in that. And it's kind of, you know, honestly following our passions. I say the 3 Bs: baseball, banking, and beef. You know, my dad's always been a rancher, and we have the Nolan Ryan Beef Company. We've got, you know, ranch interest around the state. And so it's been following those passions and just trying to do good. That's really the bottom line.
But you're getting into the turf business too.
So, you know, in the sports industry, we have been involved in a lot of different aspects. We have a hospitality company. We've got 10 venues that we maintain. We're a boutique F&B firm, strategic hospitality. Do a couple of venues in Frisco. We do a couple of venues in the Austin market. With our turf company, we build artificial and natural grass playing surfaces. Cotton Bowl, TCU, Minute Maid Park, Kyle Field at Texas A&M, San Antonio Missions AA Park, you know, Corpus Christi, Round Rock. A lot of them we have built over the years. And we maintain a couple of universities around the state as well. We built the field at Rice. We built the field at Mary Hardin Baylor. So, yeah, we love that industry because when people build a stadium or they put in a new playing surface or, you know, whether it's middle schools, high schools, or professional, it's an excitement level and a commitment to the game that we're proud to have a small part of. So I'll go to the first football game at Texas A&M in a couple, you know, this weekend. And, you know, it'll be fun because we installed the grass on that field and it'll be exciting for us.
Well, that's big business. I mean, where do you see Perfect Game, right? They broke into Texas. They actually relocated the headquarters here from Iowa. Big part of building a lot of the fields around the state. How do you see the field of the future for baseball? I mean, obviously we're going towards turf or something that's not grass, but how do you see that growing?
Well, we're really agnostic when it comes to playing surfaces. There's no free rides in the industry if you want to have a quality field. So when someone comes to us, personally, I love a natural grass field, but that takes money and it takes people that know what they're doing to maintain it at a major league level. So it's what's the environment, what's the usage, what's your upfront budget, what's your maintenance and, you know, long-term budget. And so we help people find the best solutions for them. So when I talk to somebody, if you're in a spot where, look, you're going to have heavy play, it rains all the time, and you're going to have people on the field, you're probably better off to go with an artificial solution than natural grass. But if you're somewhere where you don't have the budget to spend, but you're going to have little play and you're going to have a high quality of, it's going to be your game field, then you may want to go with natural grass. It all depends on the sport and what you're doing. Today, there's a lot of products out there. We make a very high quality and so a very high quality turf product. It's a major league product. Now, we have installed it at youth facilities and high schools, but honestly, there's some people that just say, I can't afford that. I want the cheapest thing I can have. And so in those instances, normally that's not the right fit for us, because we're putting our name and our reputation along with the turf that we use. So we use an ACT global product. It's made in America. Our company is called RS3 Turf. And like I said, we've done everything from installations at places like Rice, Houston Astros, Texas A&M, the Cotton Bowl. We worked out of state, a lot of places. So we pretty much checked every box. We did the Bears practice facility in Chicago this summer. We just did Burnett Middle School in Round Rock. So we really do anything from municipal, school, all the way up to professional fields.
You sound like you really like that business. I mean, is that obviously you've got a lot of businesses and you've got the teams, but that sounds like you're into this.
What I love about sports is if everybody in our country played sports, I don't think we would have the problems we have in society today.
Fully agree.
I mean, I've never been on a team where it doesn't matter about race or background. Can you help us win? Can you be a good teammate? Today people are so soft, folks cannot deal with failure. That's why I tell people playing baseball is a gift, because if you fail 7 out of 10 times, you're in the Hall of Fame. You have to learn to deal with failure. And when we put in one of these fields, it's a big deal for the community. It's a big deal for the school. It continues to bring those values to the surface, and it makes America better. I mean, it sounds corny, but the more people we have playing organized sports, the better we will be as a country. And I think in a lot of ways, it's our secret sauce.
Sports are big in Texas, and a lot of people say that the culture in Texas is very, community oriented. And I never really thought of that. I mean, sports is big here. I mean, in Central Texas for sure. And that's got to be a big part of the
it's
culture.
a uniter, man, no doubt about it. I mean, what else do you have that brings the whole community together on a Friday night, where you have the band, you have people in the flag corps, the dance team, the cheerleaders, the spirit squad, band parents come, the football parents come, somebody's working the concession stand. I mean, it's Americana at its best. And I think our state does it as well as anybody, but it's just not that. I mean, we host the high school state baseball championships at our ballpark in Round Rock. And you see these small towns bring everybody into Austin for the weekend to try to chase a title. And it's the greatest, one of the greatest moments of these people's lives, to get to see their town, their kids compete to say they were the best. And so those things are really at the core of who we are. And whether it's banking or beef or, the sports industry, those same core tenets are prevalent in all of our businesses, and really kind of stand behind us and are in the DNA of what makes us tick.
Now, your focus, and I've read this, is really on the customer experience. It's right. You take your family to the ballpark. You want to have a good time. Of course, you're going to watch baseball. You're going to watch your sport, but you're also there to kind of spend time with your family. And I mean, the first time I went out to Round Rock, and my son was in an all-star team that, they had the tour of the stadium. It was great. I think I shot you a text that day, but I mean, the service was really above and beyond. And I was reading about you, even when you were with the Astros and throughout your whole career, that's a big focus, isn't it?
Well, look, I think, I go back to sort of, what can you control? And my dad used to always say this when he was pitching, he can control the physical shape he's in. He can control his mental preparation. And, beyond that, once he throws the ball, if the guy hits it or the umpire misses the call or his guys don't make the play in the field, or in like 1985, they don't score any runs for him, there's nothing he can do about it. And, we can't control the economy. We can't control the weather. We can't always control the team on the other side of the field is better than us. But what we can control is the customer service that we bring to any of our businesses and to our guests. And so I'm not at the ballpark every day like I used to be, Ed. I mean, I used to be there all the time, but because we have a lot of different things we're doing, but that, is prevalent in what we do, that you have to hire it. One, I think people either have a servant's heart or they don't. So you have to find people that believe in that mantra and that it's part of who they are. And if you can find those people and you empower them, to, make decisions and decide on the side of the fan or the customer, then I think you're going to be standing out, because so many people in the world today don't focus on customer service, and it's hard to find employees and they don't train them properly. So, that's kind of that's been our thing, and we think it's a difference maker.
But think about the game. I mean, they're speeding up the game. The attention span of the younger generation is just not what it used to be. I mean, you've got to keep them occupied and entertained, right? I mean, that is the future, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the things with the rules changes have been good. People they love watching baseball. What they don't like watching is dead time. And our game is one where you truly get to socialize with the people that you're with. You get to eat some fun foods. You get to do some things. That inning breaks are natural for fun in-game entertainment. So the whole experience kind of lends itself to a social, outing. Playoff baseball is much different than regular season baseball. The ebb and flow of 162 game season or 155 game season in AAA or AA 140 whatever games. You don't hang on every single pitch. And so that lends itself into an experience at the ballpark where you get to enjoy the time that you're with one another. Having said that, people want to see action. They want to see our athletes be great athletes and make diving plays, steal bases, not just take walk, strike out, and hit an occasional home run. And so a lot of the changes are driving to those actions. And it just so happens that the younger generations are on their phones. They're always having multiple screens. And so to expect them to come to a game and not interact with the people with them, with their phone, and with the experience would be dumb. And so we have to be prepared for that. And so we've done it with Wi-Fi and high-speed internet in every venue today, where you get 10, 20, 30, 40, however many people fit in your stadium, that it works. One. Two, with the digital ticketing and all the ways that you're able to talk to consumers, you better have it available. And then know that, during this podcast, somebody's watching this, they probably already checked their phone 5 or 6 times while they were watching this, pausing us or having 2 screens going at once. It's just the way of the world. So you better embrace it, or you're going to get left behind.
Yeah. I love the statistics part of the game now. And again, just going back to perfect game. I mean, we used to flip baseball cards and play Stratomatic baseball, and there were other things that we did when we were kids. And now, if I look at the Lake Travis, 9-year baseball team, and you go to their website, they've got the kids' batting average. And I mean, do you see that as a big part of the future of the game?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's always been stats, and there's just more stats now. And I think technology is great, but what is interesting about our game is people aren't winning, 140 games in a season. I mean, in a major league year, if you get 100 wins, you're in rare air. You get 90, you're going to be in the playoffs.
Yep.
In a lot of ways, if you're 500, you got a shot at the wild card. Yep. So the fact that there's more technology, I see as a good thing. But like anything, it's what do you choose to pay attention to, and what do you choose to, to not pay attention to? And I think that will still be the differentiator between good teams and bad teams.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to drop a few names here: Roger
Okay.
Clemens, Biggio, Ginobili, and Robinson.
Yep.
Tell me
All
about them.
business partners of ours, correct?
Yeah. Tell me about San Antonio baseball.
Well, San Antonio has had the oldest professional baseball team in the state of Texas. They have had professional baseball since 1888, and they have had baseball every year since 1888. The San Antonio Missions are, an institution. Over the 100+ years they've been around, they've played in several different stadiums. Currently, they are in a stadium that is over on the south, kind of west part of town, over by the freeway and the Air Force Base. And we have a desire to build a new stadium to move them downtown, where it will be more convenient for everybody in the community, and to do a project that will be long lasting and transformational for downtown and for the city of San Antonio. So we put together several influential people in the community, from the Spurs, from business, from baseball. And, we're in the active process of working on this plan. We've owned the team less than a year. It's a Padres AA club, but it's been a lot of fun. And these people love the game of baseball. They really do.
Well, and you look at the Spurs are playing more games in Austin. FC, we've got Austin FC, which, of course, it brings a lot of people from San Antonio. Do you see these two regions really coming together and creating just a much bigger market?
I think it already is. I mean, it's been that way for a long time. I've lived in and out of the Austin market since 1990, and I can remember when I was in college at UT, we'd run down and I saw Larry Bird and the Celtics play on a whim one night because they were at the old Hemisphere Arena. I think, look, for the game of baseball, Central Texas, I really believe, one day we'll have a major league team. And now, whether that's in San Antonio or whether that's in Austin, the growth patterns of the Sun Belt, they're just going to continue to be the leaders in the United States of America. Now, seeing teams actually relocate or have expansion, there's a lot more to that than just you have a big place. But as you've seen with the SEC, you got to bring a large fan base with you. It's not just about the market, it's about all your fans. And I think the next challenge for baseball, you're seeing it with the RSNs, that really since the 80s, the cable TV model has driven a lot of the decisions and a lot of the have and have nots across the game of baseball. But as people are going to new forms of media, and you're seeing the numbers of cable systems continue to drop, that's going to have to be addressed. And I don't think you'll have much relocation until that is settled, even though the A's are talking about going to Vegas. So I think the real question is, for San Antonio and Austin being as big as it is, as hard as it is to get around, not truly being one community, it's going to be more like the I-4 corridor between Tampa and Orlando, in my mind, that you're going to see 5, 6, 7 million people live in that corridor. And you'll see eventually probably all the major sports in that corridor. I don't think they'll all be within the same communities. You might see baseball in one and football in another and basketball in another, but that kind of megaplex will end up having similar fans of all those teams. And if you look at really Austin today, I mean, we're on the north side, we'll draw on the south side on the weekends, but it's really hard for somebody to get from, Circle C Ranch or South Austin or out by Johnson City, to the Dell Diamond, it may be easier for somebody to get from Brenham, Texas to the Dell Diamond, so it's just the reality of how this market has grown. And so, yeah, they're symbiotic right now. There's no doubt about it in my mind. But do they function like, name your city, St. Louis? No, they don't function like St. Louis. But if you look at Dallas, Fort Worth, man, there's a lot of difference between, being down in Burleson and, being up in McKinney. That is worlds away in a lot of ways, even though it may be less than 100 miles. It's going to take you a couple hours to get there.
That is really interesting how you explain the region and how the future of sports can play with that. Because right now our only experiences with Austin FC, right?
Yeah, and look, I'm friends with those guys. What's interesting is if you look at the world, Major League Baseball is the top baseball in the world, the highest paid players. It's where everybody goes. The NBA is the highest paid players in the world. The MLS is not at this time the highest paid players in the world. I turned on the TV the other day and, I was watching European soccer, which was on, Fox. And so, I think the challenge for those guys, they're drawing really well. They're doing a really good job. It's a great experience. In fact, I'm going tomorrow night. The folks that play for us in Round Rock are literally this far away from, many times it happens every week, going up and going down and going up and going down, contributing to the best talent in the world. It's not guys coming from Japan or Korea or Mexico for us. And I think that's going to be the challenge for the MLS, is how do they end up growing that worldwide share where they can move up on their TV revenue from Premier League and Champions League being up there to get MLS to be the top, to be the world's game, and to be the premium. So they've got a great base going right now. And, I know the guys in Portland and Atlanta and Austin, I mean, there's some really, really good markets, and I'm a believer that it raises all ships. And so having that be the first team in our market, it's good. It's been good. And if you look at the history of sports in Austin, from really the Austin Ice Bats, which is not even around anymore, starting to us, to then, the Stars coming in, to the Spurs D League coming in, to getting Major League Soccer, each one has grown off the other. But at the end of the day, it's about the global parent league and the sustainability of that league. And what I've seen in my time in Major League Baseball is that you have to have a strong league. And that's one of the reasons that MLB, I think, has been hesitant to grow, because unless you're bringing on markets that are going to actually add, it makes it really hard. And the current level of Major League Baseball, just like the NFL's at 32, MLB's at 30. I don't know that until the media deal changes that there's any markets that can actually make all ships go up in baseball.
Yeah. And I mean, with the amount of people moving into Central Texas from Northern California, Southern California, Chicago, New York, markets that do have multiple teams, right? I mean, in Texas, we have, of course, the Rangers and the Astros, but they're so far away, and there's a lot of room in the middle. But we just have a new market of people that are moving into the state that expect, right? They expect the big concerts, they expect the major league teams.
Yep.
And obviously that bodes well for everyone's business and yours as well.
It does. Like if you look at California, there's 5 Major League Baseball teams, and you look at Texas, there's 2. Right. It goes back to the television market. The state of Texas, as well as Louisiana, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and parts of New Mexico, are shared between the Rangers and the Astros. So would they ever want another team in there taking a piece of the pie? it goes back to basic economics. Everybody loves a monopoly, you know? So unless that changes, where California is more, San Diego has, you know, below LA to the ocean, Mexico and the desert, you know, they've got them split up a little bit differently. I just don't see it happening, because so much of a Major League Baseball team's revenue comes off the local television deal, because that is not shared with everybody else. So I think the best way for baseball to go, if they truly wanted to have more teams across the country, would be to put all of that revenue in one pot and share it equally, like the NFL does. But that means somebody, the haves, whether it's Yankees, Dodgers, Red Sox, you know, Cubs, are going to be giving more of their piece of the pie to Kansas City, Tampa, and Austin. And do they want to do that? And I don't know that unless the pie is bigger, they're going to want to do that. And that's really the challenge with all the sports, to be honest with you.
Yeah, no, it is. Really interesting perspective. I'm intrigued by all of this. Well, to kind of wrap up here, Reid, getting back to business, I'm sure you look, with your involvement in the bank and of course the local Round Rock Chamber and all the other businesses you have. I mean, what's your piece of advice for companies that are either new to the area or looking to move here?
Well, I mean, look, I think Central Texas, I'm super bullish on, because it still goes back to, it's a very high quality of life. It's still an affordable place to live. Folks can afford a house. They can go have entertainment, you know, starting with the MLS and the University of Texas, and, you know, Stars minor league, Spurs minor league, us concerts. They can get to lakes, outdoor activities, the beach. It's just perfectly located for a very, very high quality of life. And the fact that our job market is so diverse, from state government to medical to tech to, you know, still manufacturing, you know, to the east, you've got a lot of farming and ranching. It really is a super diverse economy. And so I think you're going to continue to see people move to this region. I think the things that are going to limit us are going to be water and infrastructure. Those are going to be the two biggest things. This drought is, you know, putting an exclamation point on that. With, you know, Georgetown, you can't even water your yard at all. And so those will be the stresses for growth. You know, I know I-35 is getting ready to go through a long, you know, redo and a takedown of the upper and lower lanes. Obviously, the policing situation in Austin, people want to be safe. But we live in a market that is multi-county, multi-jurisdictional, whether it's Lakeway, Cedar Park, Leander, Round Rock, Georgetown, San Marcos, all of that makes Austin. Yet what happens in Austin affects everybody, and what happens in Travis County. And so it's unlike really any other place that you have 5 counties and probably 30 individual municipalities making up this one area that's going to be called Central Texas. And that's not even including San Antonio, Bexar County, and to the south. It's going to take a lot of coordination amongst our leaders. And, you know, we've had very good leadership. And so I think people voting and people making sure that they're putting people into office that have the same vision for sustainability of jobs and growth and all of those things is going to be important. So what I would tell somebody from out of town is, if you like opportunity, this is your place, but that you're going to have to roll up your sleeves and go to work, because it is not a finished product. This is a cake that is baking right now in process, and you're going to be a part of it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, at least that I talk to, they want to get engaged. You know, and maybe from the cities they came from, maybe they weren't asked, but it seems here locally, business owners get involved, you know, and people listen, because look, the state is driven by jobs and small business. It's very pro business, and you can define pro business on a number of different ways. But
yep,
if the business owners actually have a voice, that makes a huge difference. And it sounds like you're very active in that.
Yeah, no, I believe so. You know, what's interesting for us is the more kind of irons you get in the fire, honestly, the further you get away from the fight a little bit. So we have to be really good at hiring better and letting our leaders of our companies be involved. And everybody that we have in a position of president or GM or an executive are involved in the community through either, chamber or some type of business group within their individual industry. So yeah, it's definitely important. And I'm with you, man. I think small business makes it go. And when it comes to Central Texas, this is a community that knows how to say yes. They're not predisposed to say no. And I think that's a huge advantage.
Yeah, I don't think any of this happened by accident. I just think it's people are engaged. They want to keep their quality of life high, right? And they don't want it. They don't want it to go away. We have a good thing going here, and I think it's our obligation to stay involved.
Yeah, and then look, here's the thing. What's cool about it is people move from all over. I mean, I've had neighbors over the years from all over the place, and whether it was, the educational system or tech or whatever that brought them in, it's kind of like the Six Flags of Texas. It's one of the, it's in our DNA. I keep using that word, but we've been French, we've been Spanish, we've been Mexican, we've been the United States, we've been part of the South, we've been our own individual country. And at the end of the day, all of that bakes into what it means to be Texan. And each one of these groups, Chicago, California, New York, we're getting the best of the best. And it's adding to what it means to be from Austin.
Yeah, well put. Well put. Last question in closing. Reid Ryan's legacy. I'd love to get your take on what when we're long gone, what would people think about you? And I know that you've got an amazing family and you've got a great family story, but what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, I mean, it would be my kids, my kids, and then eventually their kids that, they treated people like they wanted to be treated. They worked hard. They were good human beings, and they left the world a better place than they found it.
Well said. And we can't thank you and your family enough for what you do for Texas. Like I said, you can't say the name Ryan without thinking of Texas for sure.
Well, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on. And man, you guys have a great event. Okay.
I appreciate it, Reid. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thanks, Ed. Appreciate you.
You got it. Have a great day.